The Word on Wealth team of financial experts is here to answer your questions and help preserve your family's financial future. Now, here's Gary.
So have you ever wondered whether or not you understand, well, there's these things called open enrollment periods for Medicare, and then there's other things that happen. There's the open enrollment period, and there's a bunch of other acronyms. And we have our expert on the line, Jim Robeson, to talk about Medicare and tell us everything we need to know. Jim, how are you doing today?
Happy New Year, Gary. I am doing well.
Well, we're trying to figure out, make sure we know all the acronyms, and that's kind of the one thing I always struggle with. It's like, okay, we got Jim here to figure out what all the acronyms are supposed to mean. And, there we go. So we have the one thing that we keep discussing on the show is realizing that each year about 70,000 people turn at 65. Is that right?
That is correct. So, Gary, I think it's important as we start the new year to remind our listeners that number one, Medicare is busy 12 months out of the year. And the largest enrollment period is called IEP, or the initial enrollment period. And like you said, in San Diego alone, there's over 70,000 people turning 65. Now, most of those people don't know really how to spell, and I understand this, Medicare, because it's very, very confusing. Now, not everybody who turns 65 enrolls in Medicare. They stay working. And that's the second largest enrollment period. It's called a special enrollment period. And so there's literally thousands of people who turn 65 but continue to work, but now they've decided to retire. And so the special enrollment period happens 12 months out of the year, just like the initial enrollment period. And then thirdly is what we just went through. It's called AEP, annual enrollment period, which simply means someone's on Medicare, they want to change their Medicare health plan or their prescription drug plan, and they can do that during October, November, and December every year. And then finally, where we are today, January, February, and March of every year is OEP, or the open enrollment. It's kind of a second final chance to change your Medicare health plan. So Medicare kind of ramps up on certain months, goes down on certain months, but every single month, if you're in the Medicare business, you're pretty busy.
So tell us how things went. Just give us kind of a little personal, like a perspective of yours when you had basically the initial enrollment period.
Well,
like how,
me personally,
because we've done this show through the whole thing, and I know it was like getting towards the end of the enrollment period, it was getting a little tense, and it was like, okay, this is going to be a quick show today because, and you just get super busy. And I want to know, so what was that like? Are things much more calmed down now? Do the rest of the year you get to go on vacation? How does that work?
Well, yeah, so we just went through AEP, and it was very, very busy, largely because the Medicare world in Southern California, especially in San Diego, the number of Medicare health plans are accelerating and coming onto the market. So it becomes very, very competitive. And so, for instance, especially in the Medicare Advantage world, that if you've had a Medicare Advantage plan for a number of years and all of a sudden you find out, well, gosh, if I switch to another plan that has my doctor, I can have a zero copay for a doctor visit and a preventative and generic drugs. It became very busy. But January, February, March, things do slow down. I'm crossing my fingers I can take some vacation time. But again, all throughout the year, people are turning 65, they're retiring. So it stays relatively busy throughout the year. And we're available for anyone, but it doesn't matter what enrollment period, to help them kind of navigate the Medicare maze, because even though it slows down, it still is very hard to understand sometimes.
And the bottom line is, no matter what period of time, whether we understand that it's the AEP, IEP, SEP, OEP, it doesn't really matter. Jim Robeson, the Medicare Answer Guy, is a guy to call if you wonder if you qualify, if you do qualify and you wonder if you got the right plan, if you wonder whether it's time to renew or to re-up, or can you make changes, give Jim a call, 858-935-9120, 858-935-9120. And the way I remember, I don't remember Jim's phone number, I go to themedicareanswerguy.com. So themedicareanswerguy.com, if you think if you just want to know about Medicare, and I know that's one of those things, like Jim was saying, it's hard to spell Medicare, let alone, because there's Medicare and Medi-Cal, there's Social Security, and there's different types of Social Security. So all these things, when you get around the retirement age and you're going to kind of collect or be able to take advantage of those things, they're difficult to understand. That doesn't mean that you are an uneducated person. It just means that Medicare is complicated and changes constantly. That's why we have Jim, the Medicare Answer Guy. Right? So right now we are in open enrollment, right?
OEP, correct.
OEP.
And so OEP. So for somebody who's currently on a Medicare Advantage HMO plan and you missed the annual enrollment period because you wanted to change a plan to a zero copay, you can still do it. You can do it one last time this month, February or March. And things got busy. People got COVID. They missed all those opportunities. So it's not well advertised, but Medicare felt a number of years ago that because it got so busy and it's still confusing and it's so competitive, that they would open up a brand new window of a couple of months to give them one opportunity to make the change.
So this is your potential repentance period, right? If you messed up and now you want to.
That's right. I remember you saying that last time, and I really liked it. So thank you for it is kind of a repentance period.
I mean, this is Christian radio, so we can use those.
That's right.
So there you go. It's interesting that it's the three. Does it actually end at the end of March, or when does it end? The OP.
It ends, yes. If you get an application in before the very last day of March, it'll be effective April 1st. And then you'll have to wait until next October to make any changes to your HMO plan.
Okay. So you guys, if you are wanting to know, if you're thinking maybe you messed up, you made some elections during the AEP. If you did the annual enrollment period, that's one that ended in December. And if you're thinking, oh man, did I do that right? Because sometimes what happens is there's a lot of advertisement. That's the one thing that Jim has been explaining to us and helping us understand, is that when you get towards, when you are starting to turn 65, or the year you're going to turn 65, or if it's just towards the end of the year, there's a lot of advertisement. Call this number. There's this guy on the cover that's really good looking with giant muscles, and he says, call this 800 number. And what we've been finding is that rather than do that, if you call Jim, who's a specialist and works independent, that you can get better representation because you get more options. There's not a lot of, is Jim motivated by which one pays him better or not? No, Jim is motivated by getting people into the right enrollment, getting them the Medicare coverage that they need, and doing it in a way that's really effective. And that's why we have him on the show. It's the word on wealth. We've got our experts helping you manage your money, and Medicare is one of those big, huge things. Remember, it's themedicareanswerguy.com, themedicareanswerguy.com. Jim, we've got about a minute, and I want to, after the break, when we come back, the Medicare Part B, those are the things that people really get, I think, lost on. In fact, I had a guy yesterday, he was talking to me about how much you get in Social Security? He goes, well, I get, 1,762 after those guys steal a bunch of money from me. They're taking like $150 a month. They're stealing it from me. And I learned to go, listen to our show on Monday. It's not actually stealing. It's Medicare Part B. So listen to the show. So hopefully we have a couple listeners because Gary's prompting them. Hey, listen to the show, and Jim's going to tell you how it works. If you want to ask Jim specifically, the number to call, we have lines open. It's 888-344-1170, 888-344-1170. You can call and be a part of the show. You're listening to The Word on Wealth. You've got Gary Quackenbush. I've got my associate, Edgar Hernandez, right? And Jim Robeson is and Jim is the Medicare answer guy. And when we come back, we're going to talk about Part B. So if you have friends and neighbors that are trying to figure out Medicare, get them quickly. You got about 2 minutes to get them to listen to this radio show, and we will be right back. If you want an appointment with me, talk about estate planning, wills, trust, and all that good stuff, 855-500-TRUST, 855-500-TRUST.
From San Diego, this is the Word on Wealth Financial Network. Call and ask your questions about effective stewardship in your family finances, business, and retirement.
Hello again, friends, and for years I've been telling you about Jim Robeson, the Medicare Answer Guy. Not only do you hear him regularly answering your questions on the Word on Wealth, but he's also my go-to guy for my very own Medicare questions.
Thanks, Marty. Today, people are wondering if they're making the right decisions about their Medicare and whether they're paying too much. When your 65th birthday approaches, you can count on one thing. You're going to be bombarded with Medicare ads and solicitations. My goal is to save you time and money and give you peace of mind on making your Medicare decisions. I'm local and accessible and just a phone call away. So you can relax in knowing that you'll have the Medicare plan for yourself and for your family that fits your financial needs.
Call Jim Robeson, the Medicare Answer Guy, at 858-935-9120. That's 858-935-9120. Tell him Marty sent you. Learn more online at themedicareanswerguy.com.
From San Diego, this is the Word on Wealth Financial Network. Call and ask your questions about effective stewardship in your family finances, business, and retirement.
Welcome back to the Word on Wealth. So we are going to take you right to the top of the hour. But right now, we are going to find out about Medicare Part B. Now, some of you might be thinking, well, I'm not old enough to receive Medicare. Well, I'm working full-time and I'm not on Medicare. Doesn't matter. Someday, you're going to need to know this stuff. And I bet, Jim, correct me if I'm wrong, I bet there are people listening to this that are thinking, I'm too young for this stuff. And then, but just remember, you have parents. They need to know this stuff too.
That's true.
And I found
That's absolutely true.
the one thing I found, Jim, is a lot of people, a lot of times the people that are more concerned about this are the kids. And I know with my own mom, she just got to where she said, you know what, I don't understand this garbage. That's not what she called it. But she said, I don't understand it. And I don't even care. They're stealing my money anyway. And it was really up to my sister, Dee Dee, who went and did all this Medicare research. And I've told you this before, but that was before I knew you. So it really was very difficult for my sister to figure out what Medicare options my mom had. And, and we asked her, did you take an election? Did you get Part B? And she goes, I don't know. They're stealing my money and I'm only getting, she had a very little Social Security amount. But she was really, that's all she was upset. She could never tell us what really happened. And we ended up finding a guy who's up in Reading. We found a guy that totally reminds me of you, who just talked us all the way through it. And we ended up, it was like, but every single year, my sister calls him back and says, okay, what's changed? And inevitably, here, these 5 things have changed. So,
and that's exactly what a son or a daughter or someone on Medicare should be doing, especially if they have a broker, because things will change. And as it relates to Part B, one of the big things this year is for those of us who are on Social Security, our income went up 5.9%. yay, that's the largest in years and years and years. However, the Part B premium that goes to Social Security to offset some of the Medicare charges, that went up from $148 to $170, way more than everybody thought. And in some cases, it was a wash on the 5.9% Social Security benefit. But what just came out, Gary, was the main reason it went up so much was because of the new Alzheimer's drug called Adulam, ADULEM, which is supposed to be a miracle drug for those on Alzheimer's. And they estimated that the cost of that drug per year was going to be something like $56,000. So even though per person, that's what the cost would be, and if Medicare is going to cover it, then they needed to offset some of those costs by raising the Part B premium more than what they thought they were, because they thought it was going to be from 148 to 157 or something like that, but it went to 170. Well, they just found out, and again, just in the news, nothing's been guaranteed, that the cost of that drug might be half of what they thought it would be, and there's a chance that HHS or CMS may reduce that $170.10 down a little bit lower. So nothing's guaranteed, but that's something that, you know, again, as a broker who's trying to keep their finger on the pulse of what's going on, I wanted to let our listeners know that it could be a possibility. I don't know about the government, Social Security, but that would make a huge difference, especially those like your mom who live on very little Social Security. How about giving me a little bit more of my Social Security instead of paying all that, you know, through Part B?
No, it's just the numbers to a lot of people. Those numbers don't sound very big. You know, if you're sitting on a pension or you've got your income, and you're saying, what's the difference between 170 and 149 or 140 or something like that? And when you're living on, and I talk to people usually a couple of times a week where their Social Security is under like $700 a month. And the premium for Medicare doesn't have anything to do with how much you're receiving. It's the premium, right?
Yep, it's the minimum premium that they charge those that, you know, if you're a single taxpayer and you make less than $85,000 a year, you're going to pay the minimum of $170. If you're a couple paying jointly, if it's less than $184,000, you're going to pay the minimum, each one of you. But if you make more than that, then you're going to pay more. So I think that's good news. I'll keep you guys in the loop, but I know that that'll help, especially those that you know, don't have a lot of Social Security coming through.
So Jim, as a Medicare broker, would you say, I mean, at this point now, that people should contact you because we're in the open enrollment period? They can make changes if they missed an election or took the wrong one or they just want to change their mind. And now we're talking about this, there may be a potential change with the Part B. Are these things that people should just be calling you and asking about, going to your website and looking up the information that you have there?
Well, my website is under construction, so if they have any questions whatsoever, absolutely call me 858-935-9120 or email me jim@themedicareanswerguy.com. I'd be happy to answer questions because they always come up. And again, I've said this before, there are literally hundreds and thousands of people who thought they were going to work till they're 68, 69, whatever, but because of COVID and a lot of different things, it's time to retire. And now, who's going to help me transition to Medicare? Because up until now, I've been on my employer plan and they've handled everything. And now they're telling me you're on your own. So absolutely, I'm available and accessible to answer questions, make a Zoom appointment, face-to-face, to answer any questions anybody has about Medicare. And you point out a very good point, Gary. I've had more people this last couple of months, daughters and sons of parents who they're taking care of, and now they have to be responsible for the Medicare. And mom or dad, they just don't know. They've just been kind of going along, and it's important for them to know. And there are some things that can be changed to actually save them some money. So I'm available and accessible.
All right, and that's the important thing. I'm a big proponent of kids, just because, I mean, my wife and I are that age. I mean, we're now, she especially is watching out for her sister and brother, watching out for the parents, because you just don't know when the time comes when all of a sudden your parents are going to need like constant care. They can't do as much as you think. Parents, the challenging thing, and this is why, you know, I want you listeners to realize, I mean, whether you do qualify for Medicare or whether it's your parents, I think as children, we have a responsibility to understand this stuff so we can help our parents. Because when it gets to the point where you have a mom or a dad that's relying on Medicare, that's living on Social Security, and maybe their pension or retirement or something like that, a lot of times they're not really thinking in terms of, is there a way that I could save money here and there for Medicare? We see a lot of people where the kids are getting involved finally and realizing, wow, mom has 11 magazine subscriptions, and mom is giving, you know, $15 to each of these organizations by the hundreds, and they're not paying attention to $5 here, $10 there, $15 here, and you start to realize they're also not taking care of their Medicare things. They didn't elect to be in time. They kind of messed up the enrollment because there's just a lot of things that, as our parents, you realize they've been living for a long time and they've been independent. They have their independence. They have their own ability to control things. And then as that goes away, is there a time when they get up in the morning and go, "Oh wow, I can't handle my money today"? They just don't. They just keep going. And that's why this repentance period is so critical on this open enrollment period, because it's like, you know, your mom now is going, yeah, so I made some change and I called so-and-so, you know, Mr. Big Muscles on 1-800, and I think I did okay. And if you look at that and you look at your mom's choice and go, oh my gosh, I don't think that's a good idea, that's when you call Jim Robison, the Medicare answer.
And that's exactly what's happening, Garrett, because of all the commercials, all the things that they promise. You know, mom, dad, they're in front of the TV most of the day and they see these commercials and they call the 1-800 number, who becomes their broker, and they, in some cases, they switch them, and now they realize, well, I called my Dr. Smith, but he's not on my plan anymore. Oops, this is not good for somebody who needs to see the doctor. So fortunately, like you say, we're in that repentance period, but if that's the case, and if your mom or dad, if you're taking care of them and you find this out, you need to get on the phone quickly so that we can make a change back to a plan where their doctor is contracted for a Medicare Advantage plan so they can continue to see their doctor. It's very, very disruptive.
And especially the older people are, the more dependent they are, and having their doctor have like past information on them. And we just ran into some of that where it's like, you know, right now, the way medical care is, everybody is so specialized. It's like, well, I don't do toenails. You know, I don't do ankles. I just do lungs and faces. Like, well, but he's got swollen ankles. Oh, that's a different doctor. And so it's even more critical now as we start to have these specialty groups, and that to keep your parents as long as they can, you know, with the doctor that they trust, because for them it's better, and it may be better just overall for their healthcare. So, if you're thinking there may be a question on that, call Jim first, get something set up. Maybe you could be the one that prompts it with your parents to get them to call Jim, or you call Jim and get him on the phone and work out some type of arrangement so that your parents' information can be reviewed. It's super important, you guys. I mean, as kids, that's our responsibility to make sure that our parents understand a system that becomes more and more complicated. You know, it's like teaching them a cell phone. They may or may not learn it, but things just change so fast, and unfortunately, the Medicare program is one of those things.
Yeah, and one final thought, Gary, especially medicine. If somebody changes their Medicare Advantage HMO plan to a different plan, It could be that the meds that mom and dad have been taking aren't on the new formulary, or they have to go to a different pharmacy. And if mom and dad were getting their meds through the mail, which is a great thing, now that may be changed too. And then they run out of meds. Maybe their doctor isn't the same doctor, and they got to have their meds. So all kinds of things can go sideways. So yeah, I look forward to talking to anybody to kind of answer questions and make any changes that they need.
Okay. This is super important, you guys. Get a hold of Jim. Call him at 858-935-9120. 858-935-9120. I mean, how many of us realize our parents don't want to change the prescription? Wait a minute, these pills are not the right color anymore. Well, it's a new prescription. I don't want a new prescription. Dad, it's the same prescription. It's just a different provider. Well, I don't want this. So it's important to have an expert on your side. That's Jim Robeson, the Medicare Answer Guy. Call him at 858-935-9120. Jim, the Medicare Answer Guy. Jim,
30 seconds.
I look forward to having you on the show again. Jim is our expert. If you have questions, call Jim, 858-935-9120. We're going to take you right to the top of the hour here on the Word on Wealth. And when we come back, we're going to be getting a little bit into some of the issues with aging parents and how we as kids can help them out. So listen up. Part of the show.
From San Diego, this is the Word on Wealth Financial Network. Call and ask your questions about effective stewardship in your family finances, business, and retirement.
With SRN News, I'm Jason Walker. Top Moscow diplomat is rejecting U.S. allegations it is preparing to pretext to invade Ukraine while Russian troops remain near the border.
Reporters, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei. Speaking with the reporters, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov has dismissed the U.S. claim as total disinformation. He reaffirmed Moscow expects a written response from the U.S. and its allies to the request for binding guarantees that NATO will not embrace Ukraine or any other ex-Soviet nations or station its forces and weapons there. The White House said on Friday intelligence officials had concluded that Russia had already deployed operatives to rebel-controlled eastern Ukraine to carry out acts of sabotage there and blame them on Ukraine to create a pretext for
This is SRN News.
From San Diego, this is the Word on Wealth Financial Network. Call and ask your questions about effective stewardship in your family finances, business, and retirement.
Listening to the Word on Wealth. This is Gary Quackenbush and Edgar Hernandez. Right, Edgar. We're doing something different today. We're doing this radio show and it's being put on YouTube. No, for the first time. And I think that's really exciting. It's exciting, and we're hoping the technology is doing its thing, working it. So we're hoping it works out. You ever want to see what it looks like to see your radio show host on TV? Then you can actually do that too. Right now. We are going to continue, Edgar and I are going to continue talking about things that we can do to kind of help out our parents. And when we were talking to Jim Robeson, the Medicare Answer Guy, and having that great conversation about how to help parents out, one of the things that we were talking about is that a lot of times things change with Medicare and their assistants that they get, maybe their doctors. And what surprises me, I mean, it's a disturbing surprise, and that is that when our parents sometimes make a decision regarding Medicare because they see a commercial that says, hey, call here and save money, and they call and I'm not faulting 800 numbers, but typically they call the 800 number and they get told that here's a better way to go. This is cheaper. This is better. For an extra, $80 a month, you can get this, specialty clinic to work with you. And they don't realize that when they agree to make a change in their Medicare, that it takes them, a lot of times it'll take them into a different plan where there's now all new doctors. And if you've been through the experience with a parent that now has a new doctor, it's just not a lot of fun. it's really kind of a terrible thing for them. It's very traumatic. And I know with my dad, when he had heart doctors all the time, and his heart doctor retired, and it was a nightmare. It really was difficult for him to now talk to this new doctor about his heart condition and his lung condition and all this. And he was, I guess, to say the least, he was distrusting of the new person because his other doctor was like 65 years old, and now his new doctor was like 40 years old. And he's going, "Hey, young man, you don't know what you're talking about." And my dad really didn't want to hear any change. And what Jim Robison, our Medicare Answer Guy, is telling us is that when you make changes to your Medicare plan because somebody's selling you a cheaper plan or trying to save you a few bucks here and there, which is important to save as much as you can, you may actually be causing more things to happen. You might be changing your subscription, your drug subscription plan. You may be changing who you can have as a doctor. And a lot of those things are changes that we don't want to have our parents go through. So Edgar and I are going to talk about a couple things because we work together at GQ Law, and one of the things we deal with a lot is aging parents, and we deal with estate planning on both sides of things. Meaning, we'll do estate plans for people to set up their wills, trusts, power of attorneys, and all those important documents. And then we also help people after they've passed away, where the beneficiaries or the kids will come in and say, "Hey, I don't know what I'm doing. Dad wanted me to be the successor trustee. I don't know what that is. I don't know how to do this." And we're the ones at GQR, we're the ones that actually coach people through that and help them do a good job. So we have a list of 6 things that we think would be really helpful for you on how you can help your parents. Basically, just talking about helping your parents out. So Edgar, let's just go through these one by one. We've got 1 through 6. So let's start out with number 1.
Yeah, so number 1 is before they pass, be sure to find out all you can about their property.
Okay, so what would you think, Edgar? What's a way to get that accomplished?
So I guess one of the ways you can go about it is sitting them down and asking, what things do they have? What things do they own? What assets do they have?
Now, have you done that with your parents?
No, but what's funny is that I mentioned to them that they should get at least a will done. And they're like, "No, we don't need one right now." And I'm like, "Well, I think you do, but I can't do that for you."
Right. So you can imagine having a parent that's, because your parents are young, because you are, but I mean, you imagine having a parent that's in their, 70s or 80s, whatever, and now you're asking your parents, like with your own, you're saying, "So Dad, I'm trying to help you out as your kid, and I want to make sure that your estate plan and everything is in order. So who's the beneficiary of your retirement account? How is your house titled?" They're just like,
"You don't need to know that."
Really? Okay, that's really dumb for you to ask that. So when it comes out to be not as difficult is when your parents start to realize they're getting old. Right. Okay. So yours it won't be. Now it would be more like grandparents or something that you're dealing with. But so one of the things that we've been finding is it's never, I don't care who your parent is, it's never really a time when you say, "Okay, Dad, it's time for that talk." It's like, "What talk? I thought we had that when you were like 6. No, Dad, I mean the money talk. We want to know, do you have an estate plan? Where's your bank account? How's your car titled? Tell me about your investments. Tell me about, where's your money?" Most parents are not super willing to talk about that. So it's more like you have to just spend the time with them. And as they start to offer information, you kind of like go, "Oh, that's interesting. So you have money at Schwab. So how does that work? I mean, do you have like mutual funds, or can you talk to me about it?" And then I think as a kid, if we show an interest in it, then our parents are more willing to say like, "Hey, maybe my kid is interested in this," and we can find out. And if that's the only way you can find out how you can help. We try to find out all you can. I'm not necessarily saying you should go online and do research, but there are public records. You can figure out whether your parents have a trust or how their house is titled and whether you're going to give them advice or not. I just think as kids, our responsibility really is to kind of keep a watch of that. And this, applies obviously mostly for parents that are older. Yeah. Because my kids think I'm old, but I'm only 62, so I'm not that old, but I got to be talking to Jim Robertson in a couple of years about Medicare, I guess.
Yeah, in a few years.
Okay, so let's go to number two.
Number two is encourage them to move all their resources into their trust.
So do you have any idea how helpful that would be or why we should do that? By the way, if you want to ask a question on the air, just call us at 888-344-1170, 888-344-1170 here on Word on Wealth, and we'll answer any of your questions. Most of you, gosh, if you've been listening to the show anytime at all, I've been on the show for 15 years, been an attorney for 3 decades plus, and I will be able to answer your question on the air if you call us at 888-344-1170. So Edgar, describe to our listeners what is a trust in your own understanding of it.
Yeah, so the trust of your estate dictates how the property or the money or the bank accounts are going to be distributed.
Okay, that's good. That's about right. There are different documents. Edgar, you're headed to law school and you want to be an attorney, and it's funny. I always describe to people, as an attorney, what I learned was how to take paper off of one pile and then write on it and make some changes and then put it in another pile. And that's what I do as a career. It's literally, I write things down. And it doesn't matter whether it's a lawsuit or a will or a trust or a corporation or something, it's all paper. You write something on it, you change it, you put your little, whatever now area of expertise touches on it, and it may be adding more documents to it, and then they get filed somewhere else. Somebody looks at those documents, you add to it. Law is all about documentation, and estate planning even more so.
Right.
So, when you're kind of moving in that direction, like, okay, I want to go to law school and making these decisions. I think really the trust stuff that we're talking about, the estate planning stuff, is making documents. Make a will, it's a piece of paper, a bunch of pages that say what you want done with your stuff. A trust is a document. You create this document and it says all these different things. The document itself is not the trust, but what's in the trust and what the trust is describing is really what the trust is. The trust document, if I look through it, it'll say who created it. It'll say who's in charge of running it or managing or taking care of property that is in the trust. It'll say what happens if the creators of the trust became incapacitated. There are other pages that say what happens when the creators of that document pass away, and who gets the money and how fast they get the money, and do they have to wait for certain periods of time? What about if they fight about it? All those things are in this document that we refer to as a trust, but it's really a declaration of trust. The difference being a physical thing. There's no such physical thing as a trust. The trust document that describes that physical thing. So, for example, Edgar is one of the things he does here at GT Law is he works on people's corporations and limited liability companies. Now, you would say you have built at least one corporation, right?
Yes.
Okay. So, was there any metal, any wood, any concrete? Did you have to have a truck come in, anything like that to build this corporation?
No. If you want to come to wood on the paper and be very technical, then sure, but no, it was just a lot of documents.
So nothing, and that's the thing. The corporation, it's like when you got done, you didn't go, oh my gosh, I can knock on the door. I can see if there's someone home. No,
Yeah.
the whole point is you created a set of documents, and the document describes the corporation, right? It says it's called such and such a corporation. And does it explain in there who the officers are and what their jobs are and stuff like that?
Yeah, it does that. It describes that. It mentions the officers or the directors or the shareholders.
Okay, so that is building a corporation. From a legal perspective, it is a document that describes what this corporation looks like. It's not a brick and mortar building. It could be something that's just ones and O's on the computer, but the corporation is described in the document. Okay. By the same token, that's what a trust is. So when people say, this is my trust, you say, Okay, that's actually the declaration. That's the thing that declares or describes what your trust is. And you have to have those documents. We had a client that came in and was talking to us the other day, and she was saying, I just want a will. I said, okay. And I described how the trust and everything works. And she said, that's what I want. I just want a will.
2 minutes.
And then I said, well, you need more than a will. You need a will and a trust. And she says, well, no, I just want a will. So we kind of went through the whole explanation of will and trust and the differences. And then one thing I want to talk about, we can take a break in just a second, but I had a person tell me the other day, I said, so do you have an estate plan? They said, no, but we already know what's going to happen. And I said, so do you have a will or a trust? No, nothing like that. And I said, so what is your estate plan? Oh, our kids are going to get all our stuff. They already know what they're going to do. That's going to happen. So I went through the list and I said, let's talk about what you have. They have a house. It's California, so it's worth quite a bit of money, small mortgage. They had a couple of cars, they had a retirement account, they had life insurance, they had money in investments, some cash. Just kind of a couple, probably, I don't know, $1 million in equity in the house and another, close to $1 million in investments, retirement accounts, value of cars and all that kind of thing. And their honest belief was that their estate plan, they already knew it because they talked through it with their kids. And I thought it was really interesting. And I was asking, well, how did they know what they're going to do? Well, because we already talked to them about it. And then that's when I had to have the discussion, like, you need to have it in writing. Because if there's any, well, let me ask you this, Edgar. If after you die, there's any dispute or question over what you said,
30 seconds.
how do you resolve that?
You have to go to court.
Okay, so before Edgar answers that, we're going to take a quick break. You're listening to The Word on Wealth with Gary Quackenbush and Edgar Hernandez. To get a consultation with me, Gary Quackenbush, here at GP Law, the number is 855-500-TRUST. 855-500-TRUST. Let's review your trust documents and make sure they are in order, that they're up to date, that they fit the Obamacare laws and the new rules that have been using. 855-500-TRUST. Get a free consultation with me. We're going to take a quick break and when we come back, we'll talk again.
From San Diego, this is the Word on Wealth Financial Network. Call and ask your questions about effective stewardship in your family finances, business, and retirement.
We're with Craig Smith of Borderland, your local source for cybersecurity. So many employees work from home today. How does that jeopardize local companies?
So employees are using personal devices. They have personal email, and that's harder to control. That all means that your company and your computers are at greater risk of cyber attack. Why? Email phishing attacks often look legitimate. Something as simple as an Amazon Prime shipping notice comes in and then quietly infects, multiplies, and takes data, copies passwords, and puts you and your clients at risk.
So how can you help?
Hackers only need one employee to make a mistake. We come alongside you and help protect your small business and train your employees so that they can comply with insurance requirements.
Reach out to Borderland right now at 855-945-8100. 855-945-8100. Get a free consultation and a quick, affordable quote on software services that help protect you and your small business and complies with insurance requirements. That's Borderland, 855-945-8100.
We look forward to protecting you.
From San Diego, this is the Word on Wealth Financial Network. Call and ask your questions about effective stewardship in your family finances, business, and retirement.
So did you ever watch the show Hawaii 5 Hours? You know that show? I have not. Okay. Well, there's actually come out like a second generation of Hawaii 5 Hours that got movie. And it's different version of it. Love that. Before the break, welcome back to The Word on Wealth. Before the break, Edgar and I were talking about if somebody says, well, I already have an estate plan, I talked to my kids about it. In fact, we talked about it at Thanksgiving, we talked about it at Christmas, and so they all know it's going to happen, so I really don't need a lawyer. And the question I posed to Edgar before the break was, well, what if people then pass away and there is an issue now where the sister says, well, no, Dad said I can have the car. And then the other brother says, no, dad said, I can have the car. Not that that ever happens. It happens all the time. So how does stuff like that get resolved? I mean, who do we ask to settle the dispute?
Yeah, so in the case where, most likely the siblings have a dispute or a disagreement on who gets what, then we go to probate.
What?
So probate is the process you have to go through with the courts in order to finally settle, whatever disagreement that you and ex-person have on, X matters.
Okay. So the probate court it's just like San Diego, you've heard of the Superior Court. The Superior Court has these different divisions. For example, it'll have, well, do you know the divisions? Okay, so it's criminal,
Civil.
and then, okay, that's actually federal, but the court, What about when people are fighting about stuff? Civil, oh, you already said civil. Okay, so he said civil, and we said criminal, right? We're trying to put the bad guys and girls away. And then you have family disputes, that's family law. And then you have,
Is immigration a division?
immigration is part, yeah, it's a part of law, it's more of an international. But then you have probate. Okay. So probate court involves anybody that is either dead or incapacitated. So probate court will deal with guardians, conservatorships, wills and trusts, things like that. And so what's going to happen then in probate, and that's what Edgar is describing, is that the reason you have to go to probate court is because we don't have the person that really knows the answer is no longer with us. And so everything we have, and one of the things you learn in law school is the best evidence is like direct evidence. You get somebody to testify or do a deposition or something like that, and they say, this is what I saw. It's a direct observation. And that never happens in probate because the person that really knows the answer is dead. So we always have to do everything of a second level of evidence. So when Edgar is saying we need to have things resolved with the probate court, it's because we have to go to a judge and say, look, here's all the evidence that we have to show that person's intention. Now, if you do something through a law firm like GQ Law, we're going to have the trust notarized. We're going to have the will witnessed and properly drafted. It has to be signed under the penalty of perjury or else it's not considered self-proving. And then there's power of attorneys and those things, and they all need to have a notarized signature. Without a notarized signature, they're really not valid documents and they can't be used. Well, how do you know if the documents are valid? Well, after you die, you will never know because your kids, your beneficiaries, are going to have to be figuring out whether the documents really worked or not. That's why I always say with estate planning, don't do it yourself. It's kind of like, I don't know. I guess it's kind of like if you're something really wrong with your car and you think, I got a 3,000-mile road trip, I'll just fix it myself, and I don't know if it needs a new part, but I'll just kind of wrench it and I'll wire this together and it should be okay. If you're driving around town, that may be okay because if the wheel falls off, you won't die and you won't be stranded, a million miles away. But if you're going to drive 2,000 or 3,000 miles, why would you wire it back together or use duct tape? Because you may be stranded somewhere. With estate planning, it's the same thing. You may be able to draft contracts for yourself and little legal documents and agreements and bills of sale. Totally fine. When you're talking about wills and trusts, you're talking about things that are going to happen and be proven and have to hold up after you die. So these are the big things that you don't want to do yourself. You want to hire somebody professional that knows what they're doing so that it's right. And like most of my clients say, I don't want this to be a hassle for my family. I want it to be good enough to where there's not going to be a fight. I don't want to leave my legacy of kids fighting and arguing over things, which I think is such a noble thing. And that's why it's super important for estate planning documents and everything put together. Well, it's been good to have you along today on today's show. This is The Word on Wealth. I am attorney Gary Quackenbush from GQ Law.
And I'm Edgar Hernandez, one of his paralegals.
Right, so we have paralegals, attorneys, secretaries at GQ Law, and we help people deal with estate planning, and that's one of our biggest things now is helping beneficiaries get their stuff the way they're supposed to, helping succession trustees do their job right, and then like we talked about, proving to make sure the trust is doing what it's supposed to do. Obviously, the best thing is before you become incapacitated, before you go on some long journey, like get into your car, then get your estate plan put together, get it in order,
10 seconds.
and then it'll be good. 855-500-TRUST, 855-500-TRUST. Call us and get a free consultation. Let's talk about your estate plan, your will, your trust.
Tell a friend about the Word on Wealth. 1995 with Financial Solutions attorney Gary Quackenbush, an expert in estate planning, wills and trusts, and tax problem solving. Gary is past president of the California Society of Tax Consultants. Reach out to us. The Word on Wealth team of financial experts is here to answer your questions and help you preserve your family's financial future. The information you hear on the Word on Wealth is for general information purposes only. This program discusses general financial and legal topics. Seek legal advice from a competent lawyer for your individual legal needs. The opinions expressed here do not necessarily represent the views of Salem Media Group or its sponsors. The Word on Wealth with Gary Quackenbush is sponsored by the Word on Wealth Radio Network.
If you don't like the weather, just wait a few minutes and you'll change. The weather isn't a change.